All right. I would like to share some of my musical thoughts about the Chopin Études this evening. Uh, okay, since I'm going to give a solo recital this Friday and playing all the Chopin Études, so I'm going to talk about the images and the atmospheres in some of his Études. Okay. Uh, now let me. Okay. All right. Uh, Actually, during the time when Chopin started to compose all these etudes, that is in the 1830s, the early years of 1830s. So at that time, no one really understand the keyboard, the piano, okay, better than him, especially about the layout of the keyboard, and also, the way of playing the piano. Okay, no one is more, inventive and original uh, than he. Okay, so each one of his etudes are targeted at a special technique. Some of the techniques are invented by him, so it is new techniques. So, each etude basically is concentrated on one particular technical problem, okay? Some of these kind of techniques are, nobody tried to play the piano in this way before him, okay? So a lot of etudes that were composed by him during that period of time are really the first time in the piano literature. So it is very groundbreaking in that sense. So, however, altogether he wrote two sets of etudes. One is the etude Opus 25. Another one is the etude of Opus 10. Okay, those two sets. Each one has 12 etudes in the sets, so making it altogether 24 of them. And later on in his life, he taught some students, and he also composed 3 additional etudes for those students also. So altogether, he composed altogether 27 of them. However, all 27 of the etudes, there's absolutely no duplication. Everyone is different. No one is similar to the other one, okay, even treating the various piano playing techniques. That means everything that he invents are very new and keep breaking the new grounds of piano playing. So this is very important. As what I have already talked about, so all his studies are very original, very creative, very inventive, and groundbreaking, okay? And also absolutely innovative. After him, every other composers who composed piano studies and piano etudes were influenced by him, okay? So when he composed all his etudes, what is natural fits the hand, and what is very, come to the shape of the hand, and in accordance with the layout of the keyboard of the piano, then what is good. So that means he has invented so many new ways of playing the piano. Okay, this is all from the technical point of view of Chopin's etude. However, when we talk about playing the studies, sometimes all the old schools and the earlier composers try to aim at you try to play everything the same, evenly, because when you play the scales, the arpeggios, and the passages, they want to hear every note very clearly and very even. Okay. However, for Chopin, it's completely different. He composed pieces that fits the hand. And if we look at the hand, the fingers in or on our hands or in our hands, they are all different. Okay, so you cannot try to force some of the technical passages to ask your fingers to do exactly the same. For instance, no matter how hard you practice, the pinky is never as strength or as strong as the thumb, okay? And you know, the middle finger and the second, the index and the fourth finger, they are, you know, in this way. But the thumb is another way. So you just cannot force them to play everything the same, okay? In addition to this, all his etudes are not mechanical alone, not only mechanical, I should put it this way. It is more than playing and more than solving technical problem, okay? Let's continue. So from his two sets of etudes, it really opens the door to the real piano playing, to the modern piano playing. And everything is so natural, so innovative. At the same time, it is logical, okay? So it is the real thing. It is really important in this regard, okay? And however, other than the etudes for solving the technical problem, why his etudes are so important and so beautiful is because of the musical character and the musical quality in the etude. When we talk about studies, we talk about moving your fingers only. However, Chopin go over that, okay? Not only solving the problem, but also in his etudes, there are lots of music and lots of art work inside the etudes. So there are many, many images, many atmosphere, different stories about each etude, okay? So that makes it so great. So his etude is not only for practice room, not only for salon, not only for show off your virtuosity, but some of the etudes are very theatrical and also very dramatic. It is really art pieces for the concert stage, okay? So this is completely different from all the studies and the etudes composed before him, okay? So, so he has a huge influence on the following generations or even his colleagues at that time. For instance, Liszt, Schumann, Mendelssohn, when they come back, when they go home and compose their own etudes, it becomes not only technically challenging, but also musically fulfilling, okay? So that is what Chopin has shown his talent in this field. There's one very interesting thing. No teacher taught Chopin to do this, okay? He just have it, okay? He improvised the etudes on the keyboard. And then he invent those new techniques with great music. And then he polish it. He make it very perfect. And then he put it on the paper. So everything is at first improvised first, okay? And then perfected, and then put it on paper. So in this way, you can see it is not thought out mechanically, but goes with his personality and goes with musicality of his, okay? So this is what makes his etude different. However, you know, how are we going to know what is the meaning of each etude? Because everything is indicated in the score. Chopin wrote his etudes very carefully and indicated what he wants for each etude on the paper also very carefully. So if we read the score very carefully, then we know what he is trying to tell you, musically speaking, okay? What is the meaning, or what is the story, or what is the atmosphere that he would like to create during their pieces.
although he never gives any title to any of his etudes because he's very against these kind of things. He always say, everything I put down on paper and written in music, it is all there. Okay, I don't need to add another title. You should be able to look into it, and then you will be able to know the title of the pieces. Okay, so that means some of the etudes are so graphic and obvious that the image of the music becomes so clear. Okay, all right. We can see the melody line, the shape, and the direction of the singing line. All of these, you have to play legato, you have to sing all these kind of things. And then another thing very important in his etude is he pay lots of attention to the harmony. Okay, that means to various color of the sound of the piano, with several chords. Several notes combined to make some special effect of some chords. Then it completely change the atmosphere and the color of the music. Okay, so this is very important. Also in his music, there's hidden lines, there is counter melodies, and all of these, with multiple lines, with multiple implication of these lines, then he tries to paint a very clear picture or a very clear images. Okay, and also some of the inner connections of the harmonic movement also creates lots of different colors and interesting atmospheres and sonorities. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit later. Okay, sometimes the bass line direction and its implication is also very important. Unlike the Oriental music, or unlike the other parts, the music of the other parts of the world, in the Western music, basically we are talking about polyphonic music or homophonic music. That means there's not only one single line, but there's several things going on at the same time. So for one thing is in the top line that catches us the most attention, that is the melody. Okay, and then what's very important in the Western music is the bass line. The bass line forms the foundation of the whole structure of the music. The bass line and the melodic line or the top line is not the same. Okay, so this is very, very important and very different from the Oriental music or the Chinese music in particular. So we have the top line, and then we have the bottom line. Then what's inside? What's in between? That is what the harmony comes in. Okay, the chords, the accompaniments comes in. So at least we are talking about at least three things going on at the same time. One is the things we pay most attention to, that is the melody. The other one is the bass line, which functions as the foundation of the whole music. And in between, there is what colors and tones and atmospheres and sonority of the music comes in. Okay, sometimes in the middle voice there are more than one melody going on. So that's why sometimes we will have hidden lines in between or in the middle layers. Okay, so that's why all these three elements, important elements, creates the image of Chopin. Okay, Chopin's etude. Each piece is very interesting, each piece is very colorful, and each image sometimes is very clear, and the picture very vivid. Okay, very interesting. This is very hard to find because this is the poster of Chopin's concert. When he arrives in Paris, he played a few concerts in his whole life, no more than 20 in his whole life. Unlike Liszt, gives thousands of concerts. Chopin only played around 20 or so solo piano concerts. This is one of the poster. Okay, very interesting material. So because of the atmosphere, because of the image, because of the color of the canvas, and also leave a strong impression in our audience. So that's why all these etudes has been transformed from pure technical requirement of moving your fingers into real artworks, okay? So more than just moving your fingers. Each etude is a poem. Some of them are a clear painting. Each one has its own image, and each one has its own purpose, okay? Every one of it is really a masterpiece. Just as I have taught my students and tell them, okay, you don't need to play any of these etudes, you don't need to play any cello, but nobody can avoid or escape of studying seriously of his music, especially his etudes, okay? And it is very strange as well. If we are talking about in the early 1830s, he has already published these two sets of etudes. That time, he's only at his early 20s. So you can see how original, what kind of a genius he is. And nobody taught him. He just invented. And his invention, with all those important music elements in his etudes, has completely changed the scene of piano playing. Okay? Okay, let's continue. So at the end, all his etudes are no longer studies, okay, exercises, no longer these anymore. They are really artworks, very important jewels, very treasures, priceless, okay? So when we talk about Chopin's etude, we try to play them, especially after you solve all those technical requirements. Then we try to play them not like a study, not like an exercise, but a real piece of music, something with meaning and something with art quality in it, okay? That's what we aim at when we play Chopin's etudes, okay? This one. However, there's Chopin didn't add any titles to his etudes. However, there's a great pianist called Hans van Bulow. This is a great pianist in the 19th century. He is also the student of Liszt and one of the first pianists to play all Beethoven's sonata from memory, okay, play them all. And he is also, in a sense, the greatest conductor of his time. And in order to help people to better understand the pictures or the atmospheres of those Chopin etudes, okay, he added the names to each one of the etudes. So those are the names. So you can see waterfall, climatic, okay, that is really farewell, okay, saying goodbye. And then torrent, black keys, lament, or toccata, all these kind of things. He tried to put a name for each etude, okay? This is for the first set, opus 10. This is for the second set, Aeolian harp, the bees, okay, the horseman, Paganini, Ronalds, or whatever. So these are the names that added by Van Bulow. Sometimes these names are really helpful for some of the piano students. However, some of the names, in my own opinions, are quite misleading, okay? Sometimes we may not be as suitable or appropriate as what the music really is about, okay? Okay, let's continue. However, are those titles definitive or appropriate? Not in my opinion, okay? Because when everyone listens to any one of the etudes, or when anyone practices one of the etudes, he or she will form his own image, his own understanding of the masterwork, or his own understanding of the etude, of the music. And this is really the characteristic of a masterwork, because if it is a masterwork, that means you can always look at this great piece of art from different angles, from different dimensions, and then you will get different things. Okay? So if you can only look at one artwork and can only understand it from one dimension or one definitive image, then sometimes really limits the effectiveness of that piece of art. Okay? So that's just what we say, when we read Shakespeare's Hamlet. Okay, 100 people read the Hamlet, then you will have 100 different Hamlet for each reader. It's the same thing. Okay, why? Because it is a masterpiece. You can look at it and understand it from different point of view and different angle. Okay. Okay, this is a very important photo of Chopin. Why? Because the photographer started. They can take pictures started from 1820s or so. Okay, so all the later composers really leave their real face instead of painting on the canvas or those kind of things. Okay. So this is the real photo of Chopin. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate a few musical excerpts from the etudes. Okay, from one thing is the first example is the comment by Schumann. Okay, Schumann look at the first set of etude. There is Opus 10. Okay, and then when he read through the first set of etude, Robert Schumann's comment is hats off, okay, to a real genius. Okay, that's what's his comment. When he talk about his music, talk about Chopin's music, Schumann mentioned his music is like a cannon, a big gun hiding inside the flowers. Okay, okay. Now, when we talk about Chopin, we always think that his melody is very beautiful, his harmony is very nice, very easy to listen to. However, okay, the following example is we will hear a lot of dissonance and a lot of what we hear as ear piercing. Okay, not very nice sound in his music. Okay, for instance, when we talk about the chords. Okay, when we talk about this, is this nice? No. This is what called tritone, the most difficult and most harsh sound that you can create in the piano or in the music. Not only did he did this, but he did it in a row. Okay? In chromatic fashion. If we put down the pedal, okay, no, not nice. Okay, and this chord. Also not very nice, okay? And this is even worse, okay? So in all his music, what we imagine that it should be nice and easy to our ears, very agreeable with the music that we use to get in touch with. Here it is completely different. Okay? Okay, he is not yet finished and he's not happy enough. So he adds seventh and fully diminished seventh chord. Okay, or so all these dissonant chords add together and make the whole passage very intense. Okay, so I will try to play it through the whole thing. It is not very easy to talk and play at the same time. Passage of very intensive and dissonant music, then what comes next is the resolve of the tension. The most beautiful melody Chopin has ever composed. All right? So you can see, you try to put the most beautiful things next to the most dissonant things together. So it is very, very important to understand this. That's why Schumann say it is like a cannon hidden in the flowers. Okay. Okay. So what comes in is in the middle, chaos, without water, very tense. Okay, lots of tension. Then what comes next is very beautiful. All right? And then what comes before actually is the same melody at the beginning of it. So the whole structure design is like an arch surrounded the gun with the most beautiful flowers. Okay? So this is one of his masterpieces. And Chopin even admit that, people ask him, how come can you come up with another wonderful melody as beautiful as this one? And then he just answered, I cannot quite to get another one like this. Okay, so this is one of his most beautiful and one of his most attractive singing line. Okay, however, it is put into a very contrasting section, a very dramatic contrast in the same piece of music. Okay, this is the first example. Now, the second example is when we talk about, if you still remember, when we talk about the some of the etudes. Okay, the last one of the etude it is opus 25, okay? Lots of people say, this is the C, okay? All right. It really sounds like the waves, okay, of a sea, okay, like this. All right, okay, so it is like the wave. However, when I am studying this piece, for me, sometimes I keep forming an image in my head that it is more like a bell, church bell, okay, on top of the tower, okay, next to the church. You can hear. Okay, so it is like the bell, bong, 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 bong. Although one bureau say this is the sea, okay, and lots of people think this is the ocean, okay. However, when we study the piece, and for some of the pianists or the listeners, maybe they are going to form another image in it, okay. So this is another.
Can I ask you one thing?
Yes.
Can two pianists play this piece as they feel, one like the sea and the other like the bell? Yes or no?
Yes, of course. Okay.
Because it's due to the interpretation.
Yes, and their understanding of the music. And that's why we call all his etudes are masterpieces, because you can look at it from different angles, and it still works. It still makes sense, and you still moves people, okay? It still attracts people, all right? So this is what you have just mentioned, okay? So for different people, you will have different things, okay? And in the past, during the early 40s and 50s of the last century, okay, 20th century, people are very keen to the titles added by the late Romantics. However, after entering the 70s and 80s of the last century, then people, started to refuse them. Why should I limit my imagination and my understanding by your instruction, which is not from Chopin? Okay, so that's the point, okay? Okay, now the next example is some of the pieces that he is trying to do is trying to imitate some of the harps, okay? Now, for some of the pieces, like this. Okay, so this is like Aeolian harp. Some of them think, okay? However, some people think this is more like a harp. Okay, so Obviously, Chopin in this etude is really imitating the harp, other than this one. Okay, this is all right. This is more like a harp. So you can make your own choice, okay? So when we talk about harps in his playing, in his etudes, we have two etudes. You can make your own choice, okay? So so the images and the colors of each etudes really can up to your understanding and your liking. Your liking, okay? That's why music is so wonderful, because there's no one definitive answer to it. Okay. Okay. Now, then we talk about dance. When we talk about Chopin's music, we always talk about his dance. Okay. Why? Because he wrote lots of waltz, mazurka, a kind of Polish folk dance, and polonaise. Okay. Obviously, these are all the dances that he have wrote for the piano literature. However, when we talk about his dances, if we talk about the waltz, then it is always like written for the nobles, for the salon, for the gentlemen, for the ladies. Okay. When we talk about the mazurka, basically it's the same thing. However, when we talk about polonaise, we are talking about army heroes of Poland, okay? How about there's no folk, there's no farmer, okay? Actually, I think there is some kind of dances in his piano music, especially in his etudes, okay? Especially in this particular etude, we can hear some nationalism, some national favors, some farmers dancing in the music. Okay, let me try. Sorry. Okay, when you play this kind of music, when you dance like this, it's not gentlemen or ladies in the salon. Okay, it has to be in the countryside. Okay, one more time. Okay, so you can see the steps those farmers are taking. Okay, it is not gentle, but it is very ethnic, and it is very folk folk-like. All right. So this is some of the hidden side of Chopin as well. He can be very gentle, but he can also be very rough and very national, very folk-like as well. Okay. Okay, the next one is some of his pieces are really on the dark side. Okay, unlike Liszt, because Liszt can always play devil. Okay, his thing can always be very, you know, devilish, very dark. However, Chopin always gives people an impression of nice control, logic, balance, and lyrical. Never play devil in his music, but only once. I mean, in all his pieces, I think he's very close to playing the devil himself, at least once in his lifetime, at least in one of his pieces that I discovered. Okay, when we talk about the one of the etudes, we call winter wind. Okay, that means winter storm. In one of the passages, he really plays devil. Okay, let me see if I can still remember. Let me see. Very difficult to talk and play at the same time. Here. Okay, so all these are really talking about hell, devil, underground, okay, those things. So it is very, very interesting to see the other side of Chopin, okay? So these are very dramatic, very romantic, actually. For Chopin, it is quite uneasy to find such musical example in his music, but you can find it in Liszt everywhere. Okay, so this is the difference between those two giants, you know, at the beginning of Romantic period. Okay, there's another very clear example. Is, you know, everybody say Chopin is a poet. Okay, all his music, most of his music, at least the majority of his music, are really very short and wonderful little poems. Okay, some of them are very in tune with poems as well. Okay, for instance, Opus 25, number 7. When I studied this piece, and also, okay, Chopin's poem or Chopin's music is very close to the Oriental people, actually. Don't know why, okay? So a lot of Oriental people, the Chinese, the Korean, the Japanese, they can always play the Chopin, those poetic pieces very nicely. Because some of his poems are really very closely identified with the poems of Chinese. I don't know whether you people have heard a very famous Chinese pianist, Fu Cong. Okay, he's always related all those Chopin's pieces to the poem of the Chinese. I have found two very nice examples. One is this one. I don't know. Is it this? Okay. This etude. Okay. It is very close to a very famous Chinese poet, which is in the after the Tang Dynasty and before the Song Dynasty. Okay. This is one of his poem. Okay. Which I think very identify with the etude composed by Chopin. The poet himself is an emperor of the southern Tang, and he got his country was overtaken by the Song Dynasty, and he was taken prisoner in Song. Okay. And then during that period of time, he remembers and reflects about the old times and his old country because he's captured and moved to the capital of the Song Dynasty. And he wrote some of the poet like this, all right? Which is very closely identified with the music of Chopin. It's always talking about I miss my old country, and I feel very lonely or very sad, this kind of thing, okay? So if we play this one. Okay, when we hear the melody, this is not happy, obviously. Okay, and some of the intervals are very strange. Nice, but okay, so it is something sad and something related to some tragic. So it is very identical to the poem of this poet, okay? So this is, I think, sometimes for our Chinese or the Oriental people to play Chopin's music is quite easy to play it well, okay? Another composer, Western composer's music that the Oriental can always play very well is the Debussy, okay? So very identical or identify themselves with these kind of atmospheres and feelings, okay? There's another one, okay? Uh, uh, I think it's the same pieces related to this, okay? This is the final poet. This is the final poet that he wrote, and then he was executed by the Song emperor, okay, because of this poem, okay? And this is an earlier one, okay, still the same thing, okay? Very identical to the music that I have just mentioned. Okay, the next one is very very interesting, okay? Because this is a female poet in Song Dynasty, okay? And she is very talented, and her achievement in the poetry can compare to any poet in the men's world in Song Dynasty. And when I play one of his 3 new etudes that he wrote for his students in his later life, it is so closely identified to this poet as well, okay? Okay, it is talking about what? It is talking about this young lady, very happy spending her afternoon in a very nice place, enjoying the scenery and have a little drink of wine, or maybe too much. And then near the evening, then they started to, take the boat and back home. However, because there are so many lotus and lotus flowers, they cannot find the road back. Okay, so when we hear this etude, the melody, there's no clear melody or melody line in it. It's like circling and finding the place and trying to find a way out of this beautiful scenery, okay? So she's asking, where am I now? It's exactly the same, okay, like the poetry. Okay, these are the musical examples I would like to raise about some of it, okay? So in conclusion, actually all forms of arts are interrelated. If you understand one kind of art, it is very easy for you to understand and get in tune with the other one, okay? So if we think about music, we can think about struggling of life, we can think about painting, we can think about poetry, and we can think about tragedy in our lifetime, okay? All these kind of things. Also, great masterpieces can move different kinds of people in different lands, okay? Not only for his own people, or those Western people understand those musical language. It can always move the Africans, the Asians, everyone, okay? Because it's interrelated to the human emotion, okay? And also, although it looks like it is a culture far away from ours, but sometimes actually it is so closely in tune with our own, okay? That's why these kind of music are masterpieces, okay? Thank you. My talk is like this, okay, for this evening. All right. Oh, yes. If you have any questions, you can ask, and I'm more than willing to try my best to answer. Yes.
Do you think that Chopin also benefit from some technological improvements in the piano? Because by that time it was moving from the fourth piano of the Schubert era to a new instrument.
Yes, of course, absolutely. You know, because by the end of Beethoven's life, he already composed the Hammerklavier. Okay, that is very, very close to the modern piano. Okay, and and that is the year of 1821 or 22 or latest 23. So by Chopin comes around, and when he arrives in Paris, he prepared the Pleyel piano, okay, which they still continue to produce to this day. Those kind of his piano, Chopin's piano, is still being played by the pianists even today. So the technological invention or the improvement of the piano absolutely has a great influence on all the great masters during that period of time, including Liszt, including Chopin, Mendelssohn, and in certain degree Schumann as well. Okay. However, as we already noticed that the piano is not even, okay, because we can see we have 3 black key groups and 2 black key groups, and the distribution of white keys are not always the same, okay? So nobody understands this secret better than Chopin. Everybody is trying to play everything the same. I try to force my finger to play this unevenly distributed keyboard as if it is decided as even. And then he knows the secret. And everybody try to point out the melodies on the outer voice, actually. That means we are trying very hard to point out the most beautiful things with the 4th and the 5th finger of both hands because they are at the outside. But in tune, these 2 fingers are the weakest. So most of his pieces, some of it, the most brilliant passages, the melodies in the thumb. He is the genius. The others are not.
And another question, do you think that he was influenced by the latest works of Beethoven?
No.
No.
He hates Beethoven. He don't like Beethoven, okay, because he thinks...
But I mean just the technique.
No, absolutely not. Beethoven's technique is something in the old school, okay? And Beethoven's technique has no groundbreaking. Actually, Beethoven's pieces wrote for the piano is not fit for the piano. It's not fit for the hands. Because Beethoven, when he composed his sonatas or his big piano pieces, he's not thinking about piano at all. He is a symphonist. He thinks about symphony. So he tried to write a symphony or string quartet and disguise it as a piano sonata. So it's very difficult to play. It doesn't fit the hand. Okay.
So just one last remark. When you mentioned about the poem of the emperor waiting for death and mourning somehow the end of the dynasty, because Chopin could not live in Poland.
Yes.
He was always an expatriate, so there is always sadness in his music.
Yes, okay, that has something to do with it. However, in how deep of a degree is open for discussion, okay? Maybe he's not that patriotic as what we think he is, okay? Why we think he's very patriotic, is so inclined with the Poland, is because some of the biography written during immediately after his death. One of it is by Liszt. Actually, it's not written by Liszt, by his mistress. Okay, those biographies, they should have the most objective and first-hand impression of Chopin. They should write the best. However, at that time, those are all romantics. They always write something and then add even more of their own imagination into their biographies. So at the end, nobody weighs those biographies and those evidence too seriously. Okay. Yes, to some degree, yes. Okay.
Just one last thing about Debussy. By the time Debussy were composing the most famous
Yes.
piano pieces,
Pieces, yes.
there was an exhibition of Oriental art
Yes,
in Paris.
yes.
And he became very fond of the gamelan
Yes, yes.
orchestra
Yes.
of Bali.
Yes.
Yes, so there is a lot of Oriental sounds
Yes.
in
Absolutely.
yes, even in the titles of
Yes,
the
yes,
pieces.
yes. Debussy is also influenced by the Russians as well, okay? And especially about the Paris World Expo, as what you just mentioned, the gamelan from Bali, okay? That really opens the whole door for the Western composers. Now they understand some of the Oriental sounds can be this beautiful and so different from that they have been used to listen to as well. Yes.
Yes. And about the bell or the sea, I think is the bell. Poland has a lot of churches, and
Yes.
it reminds me also of Rachmaninoff.
Yes.
Because we can listen a
yes.
lot of bells in
Yes.
Rachmaninoff, same
Yes.
way.
Rachmaninoff is die-hard Russian. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yes. The book, the music. Okay. All right. It is very easy to get the score of Chopin's Etude. 他的练习曲，肖邦的练习曲。对。第几号 ？OK。Please take this picture. OK， 它是3个新的 Etude， 就是不是在作品10跟作品25里头的。新的3个其他的，它整本就有的了。对，可以啊。另外的话呢，就是这个，就是这个，作品第7， 25第7，可以，你上网马上找到，不用买，it's free， you can download free。Oh, okay. Well, great enjoyment. Hope you can find. Okay, no problem. If no more question, then yes. Okay, thanks for coming. Yes. Thank you.
So see you on Friday. Is it Friday? Friday?
Yes,
at
Friday.
8 o'clock?
No, 7:45.
7:45. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.